Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Stylosa and I'm kind of sad because I made a beautiful video explaining how capture points could be fixed, or hybrid maps, or any map with a capture point. But Blizzard have actually gone out and said, oh, we're going to do this, so that made my video redundant. So we can in fact comment on what Blizzard are going to do. So what you're seeing here in the background is an attack on Volskaya. If you look, the enemy team managed to capture 8.6% of the point. This means we need to get 9.6%, and we're about to get 9.6%, and then there we go, we win. All you need to do is push the enemy off the point. This is highly frustrating, and this happens all of the time. Here's another example. This is Junkrat, where... What? Oh, they just walked onto the point. That's right, because we used our entire time bank to attack the point, and that just meant the enemy team had to touch it. Because all you had to do was get 1% more than the enemy team, and you would win. Now, if we roll this all the way back to when Blizzard introduced this change on the PTR, I was happy, because a lot of draws would happen on Hanamura specifically. Volskaya could suffer from it, Anubis to some extent, but it was generally Hanamura which was the pain of the ass, ladies and gentlemen. You would draw on this map all the time. So anything to get rid of the draws was great, because nobody likes sitting there in 20-minute long games and you just get nothing for it. It was frustrating. Sure, it was better than losing, but it was quite frustrating. So what Blizzard did was introduce this system where it was based on what that hog just went flying, where it was based on 1% more than the enemy team, which in theory was okay. On the PTR was impossible to test because, well, nobody plays the PTR properly. However, as soon as this update hit live, it became quite apparent that, well, yes, this is a very, very bad system, because what would happen is, if you look at this gameplay right now, you look at how much we've captured, we have captured 19.7% of the point. That is not great, okay? The enemy team, they need to capture more than 19, well, they need to capture 20.7% and they would win. So this means we can still defend. The old system would mean they'd have to capture the entire point, so they'd have to put in a lot more effort than us. However, there are some changes, ladies and gentlemen, and these changes are absolutely beautiful. So Scott Mercer put this little jazzy post up on the forums, and this is what he says. Instead of needing to simply earn 1% more progress on an objective than the enemy team to break a tie and win, a team will also need to achieve a minimum of 33% progress. Right then. So what this means is, if we look at this gameplay footage we've got here in the background, it means that when this change comes out, you will need to capture to the first pip. Even if we've got 19.7% and you get 20.7, you do not win, right? You have to take it all the way to 33%. If you don't do that, then it will be a draw. That's totally fine. Like, that is totally fine to me. He also goes on to give us some specific examples, and we can go through these right now, ladies and gentlemen. Team A attacks the first objective on Hanamura, but only gains 10% progress after a really rough offensive round. Team B then attacks, but they can only gain 20%. This is a tie. Neither team achieved the minimum of 33%, right? That is awesome. I'll read it again. Neither team achieved the minimum of 33%. That is exactly what we wanted. In fact, in the video that well, it's now redundant, so it's never going to see the light of day. That video did say, look, why don't we just use pips? It was a little bit more aggressive than Blizzard's system, because it was not really based on the percentage at all. It was just based on the pips, which you could argue, even though this system still has the percentage element to it, it's still based on the pips, right? But also, like, because I mean, even if you do get a 20% capture on a point and the enemy team fail to get 20%, they might get 10%. It's still a draw. Like, that is not that's not a win. Team A attacks the second objective on Hanamura and fully captures it with 3 minutes left. Team B attacks the second point objective on Hanamura and captures it in overtime with no time left. Team A is now back on the attack, trying to take the first objective. They can only reach 20% progress after their time bank of 3 minutes elapses. This is a tie. They did not meet the minimum target of 33%. See, that's the interesting thing, right? 33% is the minimum target. So if we just roll back to what I just said, the percentage comes into play after 33%. So if you get like 40% capture, right, and the enemy team get 30% capture or 33% capture, then you win because you've got more capture than them. But if they then get 41% capture and you've got 40, they then win. At least that is how I've read this system to work. I'm fine with that, because the problem with this system right now where you just needed to get 1% more than the enemy team, regardless of whatever percentage you got. It meant that defenses had to stand on the objective, which is completely counterintuitive to the way the game was designed, because you cannot use any of the choke points on the map unless for some reason the actual capture point itself was a decent defensive position, which I don't think any capture point really is. You have to stand on it, which was ridiculous. If you look at Numbani, for example, you'd have to stand right on the point. If the enemy team, if you've used all of your time to attack and you couldn't actually capture any of the point, all the enemy have got to do is jump a Winston on and they win, right? So this means somebody has to stand on the point. That means somebody is wildly out of position, and if that Winston jumps in, he will wreck that person. Or if Genji and Winston or somebody just dives in, they'll kill that person. As soon as they die, that team instantly wins, and that felt like absolute crap. And that is one of the key things Blizzard are obsessed with. This game has to feel fun, it has to feel engaging, and it has to feel like you're actually doing something, well, worthwhile, and just simply rushing into the point was absolutely terrible. Now, I've got to commend Blizzard for coming out and fixing this so fast. I mean, one of the reasons why I made this video I keep going on about, which you're never going to see, but the reasons I made that video is because it needed to be changed. Blizzard obviously knew it needed to be changed, and I was hoping that if I put a video out with some examples, it might get a little bit of traction in the community, but it doesn't matter, because they've just gone, yeah, we're going to do this. And actually, as I said, it's a little bit more aggressive than the system I had in place, because the minimum 33% capture is totally fine in my eyes, and then after that, going back to the percentage system, again, that should be okay. I mean, my idea would just be to go to a completely pit-based system, so it's 33%, 66%, and then 99%. Problem with that is you could stand up with draws more often than with this new Blizzard system, so I'm kind of cool with that. Like, I think this system itself could actually be quite good, and I think we're going to see more interesting games and better games, and we're definitely going to see less draws. Now, we will see more draws than we have been seeing right now on live, because obviously you need a minimum 33%. So yes, there will be more draws, but I'm totally fine with that, because I do not want the instant capture, the instant win. I've been on both sides of it. It's a pain. It's just a pain. Like, when you win straight away, it's like, oh, great. Yeah, it's pretty funny, whatever. But when you lose straight away, well, it just feels terrible, because you've all had to stand on the point and maybe somebody left the point. I mean, hell, heroes have got abilities that knock you all over the place, haven't they? What about Orisa? She pulls you off the point with Halt, or D.Va flies in and headbutts you, or, you know, any other ability that can knock you about, sends you off the point, and then you instantly lose. It's not great. Like a Winston jump, for example. It's not great, and it doesn't feel awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, they are fixing the capture point mechanic. We should no longer get instant defeats or instant wins, which should be a fantastic change, and I can't wait to play this on live. Of course, the big problem with all this stuff is you're probably sitting there going, well, Sty, how the hell did this even get to live? And Sty, you made a video saying this was a good change. Yeah, it was. On the PTR, this was a really good change when it came out. Problem with the PTR is it's not a live test environment, so you can't really test things which you will find out on day one of playing it in competitive, which was this very, very close sort of percentage system. You could maybe guess, yeah, that might happen, this might happen, but it happened way too often, and it was really frustrating. So PTR isn't the greatest for that kind of stuff. And in fact, like Jeff has always said, PTR is just really for making sure things are not broken, so the game works, and then they basically use live to gather the data, and then they act off it, which is great. So long as they keep acting off the data, this is awesome. I mean, look at the Bastion stuff they did earlier on. In the competitive season, where they fixed him pretty quick. That was awesome. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Stylosa. This is Unit Lost. Let me know what you think about this capture point change. I think it's pretty good, and well, yeah, should be awesome. I'm Stylosa, guys. You can follow me on Twitter, which is @UnitLostGaming. If you like the video, then give it a like, and yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Toodaloo.